A secret war between America and China? While the media is talking about some kind of tariff war, almost no one is talking about the essence behind the official narrative. The reason why the two biggest world powers are fighting could not be less in the physical sense, but more in the meaning for the future of humanity. I will tell you right away what it is about. The Chinese American tariff war is a hidden embargo, and here is the reason. Chips. Yes, chips. We recognize the critical role that semiconductors play in our modern world. However, it's essential to acknowledge that Taiwan is no longer the sole leader in chip production, marking a significant shift in the global landscape of technology and innovation. China has painstakingly reduced its surplus and seized all technological achievements in that field. It is unstoppable and already a serious competition, and America is desperate because of this. That is why this is not just a trade conflict. This is a war for the future, for domination in the field of artificial intelligence, supercomputers, and advanced chips. Whoever reaches the so-called artificial general intelligence will rule the world, not only as a leader in science, but also as the master of economic, technological, and political power of the 21st century. Who has a better chance of winning? Should we cheer for someone? And are there alternatives to this new Cold War division and the so-called war of chips? Like, share, and leave a comment below so that as many people as possible see this important video, and make sure to watch it to the end, because it concerns all of us. First, tensions between the United States and China began in 2015, when China announced the economic plan Made in China 2025, intending to strengthen its technological sector. It began to subsidize electric cars, information technology, telecommunications, artificial intelligence, advanced robotics, aeronautical engineering, biological technology, and other fields in which the West is used to having a say on the world market and the security of that scene. In 2015, President Obama began accusations against Chinese companies, and the first tariff was introduced by Trump in 2018, as well as a series of measures against the Chinese technological sector. Biden continued in the same spirit. When Trump returned to power, he sharpened the situation. In April, Trump imposed a 125% tariff on Chinese imports, and China repealed it with the same measure. In the end, Trump raised the tariff by 145%. These numbers practically lead to an embargo. But then suddenly the storm subsided. In May, a 90-day ceasefire was declared for negotiations. What? Nobody talks about that. Trump and his team are not really transparent on that issue, citing many reasons. There are many reasons. From the problem with fentanyl, whose ingredients come from China, which I mentioned earlier, to the fact that the American elite wants to compete on self-sustenance and self-sufficiency. The neoliberal monopolar order has collapsed. The Americans, considering that this order will last forever, have stopped producing anything real and profitable, parasitizing on the global market, based on domination in the military and financial sectors, as well as in the high-tech sectors. At the same time, Washington is afraid and doesn't want to admit that Beijing is calling it out in all three areas. Although China's military power can't threaten America, maybe it's the only country that could fight them off without the use of nuclear weapons. Financially speaking, China is one of the world leaders in the de-dollarization of international trade. And technologically, China is dangerously advanced and threatens to be the first to reach artificial general intelligence. Let me just explain. It's a special kind of artificial intelligence, which, in terms of cognitive abilities, is equal to a human. It's like a jet GPT could learn to fly a plane, to knit, to heal, and to make strategic decisions, adapting to new situations and solving complex problems. Some futurists believe that the first to reach that stage in order to be able to control that technology will be a step ahead of all rivals. And maybe that will be the end of all rivalries. From an economic point of view, it is believed that the one who controls the chain of the supply of rare minerals, along with knowledge and technologies, will lose the ultimate advantage over rivals. China is already at a great advantage here, because these minerals are in abundance on its territory, which is why it is its biggest export. That's why for the past half a decade, Washington has been trying to stop the expansion of Chinese companies, such as Huawei, on the global market. Since 2022, it has been forbidden to sell the most advanced chips to China, those that are used in weapons and supercomputers. And that ban does not only apply to American companies, but to the whole world. Stay away from Huawei chips or else. On Monday, May 12th, The Bureau of Industry and Security under the U.S. Commerce Department issued guidance, just friendly guidance, stating that using Huawei's most advanced AI chips, quote unquote, anywhere in the world, may violate U.S. export controls. So much about the free market. Americans use the argument that since some of these chips are their invention, they decide who is allowed to use them. Such logic would perhaps pay off if the Americans stopped using barley, which is a Chinese invention. We would live in a much more peaceful world. But the job of the czar, the job of the embargo, the job of everything. It has been discovered that China has managed to improvise a fascinating technological advancement in a relatively short period of time. First, it has managed to bypass sanctions against the company in the Middle States. Second, it has managed to print advanced chips on older machines. And third, the development of its own technologies has enabled similar results in the field of artificial intelligence to be achieved by American technological giants with much less investment. In the Western press, information can often be read that China is about 5 years behind in the development of chips and AI. But recently, it has become clear that this is not quite the case. The Chinese DeepSeek, the Chinese version of ChatGPT, is perhaps less imaginative in terms of language, but it fulfills many tasks better than American artificial intelligence. And what is classic for Chinese products is not cheap. The free market is free for them, and they only tell us stories about the free market. We wouldn't let them take over our market completely. That was the logic behind China's withdrawal from the World Trade Organization 2.5 decades ago. It shouldn't have been win-win. Win for America, which wanted to use cheap labor, lose for China, which was supposed to leave the market to the Americans. But the Chinese wisely took advantage of the opportunity and outplayed Washington. They held back restrictions on the domestic market and conquered foreign markets. They imposed transfer technology. They subsidized key sectors for the protection of the same. In the end, what the rich countries did while they were getting rich, China applied to itself. And it succeeded. China has become unstoppable. I was especially struck by the news that Malaysia has recently become the first country in Indochina to launch the allegedly sovereign AI ecosystem, which is based on Huawei chips and DeepSeek. This means that powerful countries, including Malaysia, which has one of the largest economies in Asia, are starting to ignore the threats from the United States. It becomes clear that China is leading the development of a new generation of chips, which process a much larger amount of information, with much less heating and consumption of electricity. It is interesting that the US sanctions actually helped China to become aware and independent in a short period of time. Unlike the Americans, the Chinese do not prioritize profit as much as state prestige. That is why they can do things cheaply, efficiently, and bravely, because in the research process, they do not have strong intermediaries, traders, and directors who are looking to steal every dollar. Without the root change of the US system, Washington can do absolutely nothing to prevent the development of Chinese technology, except that it prevents its allies from cooperating with China. Fear still holds many countries under control, but I let go of that fear. I am not someone who thinks that American hegemony in the world should be replaced by Chinese hegemony. Although it may sound like I'm promoting China, I criticize American practice. What I support is the decentralization of world power, so that no one takes over so much power that they can establish a monopolar order. I am for equality in international relations because I think that brings greater peace and stability. That is why this war of chips is not a topic for IT experts, but for anyone who is concerned about the misuse of technology for world domination. We must understand that power does not know the nation. It always seeks control and expansion, and that we must be loyal to the concept of freedom and direct it against anyone who tries to take that freedom away from us. We do not know who it will be tomorrow, but whoever it is, we must be aware and ready.